Hey, good morning, everybody. It's your pastor here today, and it's Monday morning, and I wanted to come to you today because I wanted to share something with you. By now, most of you all have either heard or seen or saw the videotape of what I want to call the slap. For those who've not seen it, for those who've not heard it, for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, last night during the Oscars, comedian Chris Rock was standing, he was presenting, he was sharing his usual comedic routine. And as he was presenting the nominees for a certain category, he made a statement, a comment, what was, I guess, supposed to go over as a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. He said, I look forward to seeing you in G.I. Jane 2. And it was at that point where, people started laughing, he was laughing. At that point, it was when Will Smith got up, walked up, and slapped him on national television, and then went and sat back down in his seat. It shocked the nation, it shocked the world, it shocked everybody watching. Social media blew up. Everybody had an opinion to offer as to why or what or who should apologize, who was wrong, and the majority of the comments focused around Will Smith should apologize to Chris Rock for what he did. The idea or the basis behind the joke was, if you saw G.I. Jane 1 with Demi Moore, you saw that she had a shaved head. Well, for those who may not know, Jada Pinkett Smith suffers from alopecia, which is it causes women to go bald, to lose their hair. And she publicly came out about a year or so ago that she suffered with this disease. And losing her hair and losing all that caused her to deal with some mental challenges. Because you know and I know that when we go through health crisis that affects us and how we appear physically, it can have an effect on you mentally. She has been open about her mental challenges with suffering from alopecia. Well, Will did not feel as if the statement, the joke, was appropriate, so Will defended his wife. Now, I'm not here to say yes, no, right or wrong. I want to talk about this from a larger perspective, the day after. The day after. Because one of the things I want us to understand is that there's something about defending one's honor. Defending one's honor. In the gospel, Jesus walks up into the temple. And Jesus witnesses in the temple that there is money being exchanged. There is the selling of items in the temple. And he says, you've turned my father's house into a den of thieves. The fundamental issue Jesus was trying to communicate is that one of defending the honor of God. Defending the honor of God. As people of faith, when I go back and look at what transpired last night after the next day, and from a broader perspective, each and every one of us has been created in the image of God. Jesus was defending God's honor in what God had established. Jesus was defending God's honor in what God had constructed. Jesus was defending God's honor in what he had been called to steward. I didn't see anywhere in there where, after he whipped folk, I don't see anywhere in there where people got upset because Jesus whipped some folk, slapped some folk, beat some folk, turned stuff over, just went ballistic. In his anger, it was righteous indignation, because he in the moment was standing up for and he was protecting the honor of God. In the moment, I believe, this is just me, it may not be you, it's just me. I believe, as a husband, as a father, that when what God has given you to steward and to protect and to preserve, to maintain the honor of it, when that honor is violated, none of us can say that a person is wrong when they believe that you have just dishonored and shamed God. We live in a culture where women, especially women of color, have been treated with dishonor and shame throughout centuries. Throughout centuries, black women have been demeaned and degraded and treated as if they were second class. Black women quite often were treated worse than black men. And here was a black man standing up for his black wife, standing up for the woman he believed God gave him to protect. It's not for any of us to say what he did was right or wrong, because in his mind, if he felt as though he was defending God's honor through what God had given him, what makes that any different than Jesus communicating to us in the scriptures that I'm called to defend the honor of God? For all those people who woke up this morning and who tweeted last night, who did all stuff last night about this and that, how he was wrong, what is the difference in America slapping black people every day and never once apologizing for the slap? What is the difference in witnessing for ourselves on national television a black woman being slapped by white politicians during a confirmation hearing? And not a single one offered an apology. The narrative is quite funny, because the narrative suggests to us in this larger scope of things that we are wrong for doing what we do. But yet, on the other hand, it can be done to us and there is no wrong involved. I want you to have a theological perspective here, because as a child of God, as a person of faith, as a person who believes that I am called to defend the honor of God, there are moments in your life where you're going to be embraced or challenged with, confronted with something called righteous indignation. Right? Being a person of faith does not mean you can walk over me just because what would Jesus do? The passivity of Jesus is often the thing that's promoted the most in this westernized culture. But when you really examine Jesus, there is a radical side to Jesus. There's a righteous side to Jesus that stands and defends the honor of God. When the woman was committed caught in the act of adultery by the church folk and they wanted to kill her, Jesus says, before you throw a stone, why don't you take a look at yourself? Because if you are clean, if you are free of sin, if you are innocent, then you go ahead and throw a stone. You go ahead and castigate. You go ahead and kill. You go ahead and destroy. You go ahead and take the law into your own hands. But after you've stopped for a minute and examined your own self, then you might realize that all of us are flawed and we all have our own challenges to work through. Again, I'm not here to say one way or other what Will did was right or wrong, because I don't know how I may have responded in the moment. I don't know how I may have responded if you made light of a condition that my wife or my children, I don't know how I would respond. And that's just being honest. So for everybody who's saying what should be done, I raise the question: what are you doing in defense of the slaps that people are getting every day from America? What are you doing when there are slaps against people in the judicial system? What are you doing when people are being slapped in corporate America? What are you doing when people are being slapped with police injustice? What are you doing when people are being slapped with wage gap disparities? What are you doing when politicians are slapping us every day in the face, cutting health care, diminishing voter rights? What's the difference? Jesus defended the honor of God. Jesus defended what God had given him. And in this hour, after you processed all the feelings, after you processed all your emotions, I want you to take a step back and look at the larger picture. Because the larger picture says, we'll laugh and mock you when it's black on black crime. But how dare you say anything when it's white on black? How dare you say anything when it's the blacks getting slapped against non-blacks? Before we rush to judgment, before we want to castigate this man, before we want to say what he needs to do and what he should do and what all this, take a step back. Because if you are a person of faith, then you understand what Jesus was articulating when Jesus walked in the temple, saw his Father's honor being destroyed. Because Jesus came to give glory and honor and to preserve the honor of God. And as a person created in the image of God, whether we are black, white, red, green, purple, or blue, gay, straight, male, female, if you have been created, you have been created in the image of Almighty God. And there comes a point where defending God's honor over what God has given you is the challenge for all of us to live. The day after the slap, because we're being slapped every day. We're being slapped every day. Systems, policies, practices, slapped every day. And the bigger question is, are we going to stand and defend the honor of God after the slap? Be encouraged. This has been your pastor. Think on these things as you continue to grow in your faith. I'll talk to you soon.